Well,
Thanks for
Michelle,
having
thanks
me.
for doing this. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's your social media is amazing. I mean, I constantly see you traveling and playing in amazing venues, and you're all over the place, all over Europe, amazing
Yeah.
venues and cities. So, what does it feel like to be living such an amazing life? Does it feel that way to you, or?
Yes. I mean, it's hard to process, to be honest, because I'm doing things that I never dreamt were possible for me to do. Um, and all this kind of fell into my lap like very, very much instantly. It reminds me of like the overnight success being 10 years kind of thing. But like Candlelight changed my life. And I've been working on my own brand for so long, and combined with Candlelight, things have just exploded. And it's been a rush, but also it feels very normal. And sometimes you're so focused on just like getting to the next thing that you forget to zoom out and be like, hang on a second, like this is crazy. Like what's happening? So I'm trying to do more of that zooming out thing, especially when I have some days off, which I do now.
So, how did you get that candlelight gig in the first place? And how
I
long you
was
been doing it?
recommended. Yeah, it's
Recommended?
been
Mhm.
2.5 years, and I have a friend who's a violist in Brussels, and they had a pianist drop out last 10 days before the show. They needed someone, and it was funny because like the first show was one Chopin concert and one Coldplay concert. Coldplay's been my favorite band for like 25 years. Like I'm literally obsessed. Like during COVID, I was playing through Coldplay scores for my own pleasure. Like it's just so they were like, "Do you want to play Coldplay for 500 people in Brussels?" I'm like, "Do I need to pay? Like, what's the catch? I don't get it." And then things just kind of kept going from there. And then they really exploded about a year ago.
Yeah. So, how did that start? I mean, who got that idea to start this? And did it start in Europe or did it start in the US? I wasn't clear on that, but.
Yeah, I was told it started in Madrid in just around COVID or 2019, 2020.
Mhm.
And now
Okay.
they've sold, I mean, a year ago I heard they sold 5 million tickets or something. Like they're everywhere. They're global.
I know.
So they're
It's
doing an
crazy.
amazing job. They do a great job of marketing, which is what every musician needs to learn. Like, and that's why it's been so fun to work with the data company because the Fever, their big company is like a data company. They had 12 years of data and they said, okay, where's the niche? Where's the gap in the market? They're like, okay, classical music, but aesthetic classical music. Okay, how can we make beautiful classical concerts? Oh, let's bring in thousands of candles in the most beautiful venues we can find. And they go for this wow, jaw-dropping experience. They're not selling classical music, they're selling the experience, which
Mhm.
is so smart. And if the average classical musician could figure this out for our own, chamber music concerts of Brahms and Beethoven, then we'd be talking, right? It's just so interesting to see how they work. And also as a musician, you just don't have time to do all the work that they're doing. Like they have massive amounts of data, they're doing ads, they're doing all the marketing stuff, and we're just trying to focus on playing the right notes.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've seen him in my town too, and I had never
Yeah.
really heard of it before, but you're kind of seeing it everywhere now. It's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
floating. Yeah,
And
so
that's what they're so good at. I mean, it's about visibility and everyone's talking about it. I mean, I was told it's very à la mode to go in Paris now. They're like, oh, Candlelight's very, very à la mode. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. Just come to the show and have a good time. But yeah.
so what
And
does
that
it
has
feel?
only helped oh, sorry. It's
Oh,
only
go
helped my
no, go.
classical music career because it's like I've learned so much from them about how they market and how they talk about it and how they sell this experience. I'm bringing that into my much smaller chamber music series. But now we're talking about creating experiences for attendees, rather than just saying, come here, Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff trios.
So it's about the lighting, it's about the atmosphere, it's about yeah,
Yeah,
that adds a
connecting
lot,
with
huh?
the artists after getting a drink, chatting about the music, meeting people. It's about community and connection. And the music brings us together, right?
hmm And how do the outfits play into that too? Is that part of it, part of the experience?
That's just fun. I mean, that's just the fun part. No, I think I was listening to Creating Moments by a recent book, Defining Moments, and it's talking about creating these peak experiences that people are going to remember and the importance of like elevating everything from the normal everyday to like this wow effect. So I think the outfits just play into that. It's like you get to see a beautiful scene, a beautiful venue, and then there's a big dress. I mean, it's just fun.
Amazing. And how does it
Also for me.
feel? What does it feel like when you're on stage? So you're on stage in front of what, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people? Has it been
Uh,
thousands or is it more like
Not
hundreds?
not yet. It's coming. I'm declaring that it's coming. I did 800 in Paris this week per show. So over the 2 nights, it was 2,500, I guess.
That's a lot. I mean, still, I mean, how does it feel to be in front of that many people all by yourself?
uh, it it's so fun. I don't know how to explain it. I've been doing this for like 2 years now, right? So in the beginning, well, the first show was 500. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's Michelle and Friends, and I tell stories and I tell jokes and I get them laughing and I get them to settle down. And at the beginning, I kind of do this like setting the tone thing where I'm like, we're here to enjoy. We're here to have a good time. Because I've done it for so long now, I know there's going to be people crying. There's going to be people who write me messages after, like telling me gushing. There's going to be people there who have never been to a concert before. And I think more and more I'm recognizing the value in what this experience is for people. These people who aren't here to count my mistakes. They're not here to judge my Chopin nocturne. They're just here because it's their mom's birthday and they want to share a nice moment together. And I think for me, it's like, wow, let's like remember why we're doing this. And it's not actually about me. It's about creating a moment for them. And I'm so lucky to be the person kind of conducting the evening. It's just awesome.
That's fascinating. And do you ever make mistakes in these concerts? Does that ever happen?
I do I ever not make a mistake? I mean, the worst is that with these pop songs like Queen or ABBA, like people know the melodies. So you miss a note, everyone knows. They know more if I screw up in a pop song than in like a Beethoven, right? Because
Um,
they don't know Beethoven, but they're like, ooh, ABBA, like we couldn't sing along in that one spot. You didn't know the bridge very well.
Uh,
But I've
so
worked, I've worked now, so.
so how do you deal with that? I mean, you just move on, or does it stick in your head for a while?
I mean, there was like one Rihanna song where this guy was like, yeah, you didn't really know that one. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know. It sucks to kind of get those little comments, those little piercing things in your heart. But what are you going to do? Just learn from it, move on, make sure you listen to it better next time, check your notes.
Uh-huh.
What are
So
you going to do? You got to keep going.
are these things recorded so you can listen to it back to it and kind of judge it later, or is it just like?
So, yeah, they're only allowed to record the last song.
Hmm.
So I hear the same thing over and over. So sometimes I'll switch up the encore just to let myself hear another song.
Hmm.
And then I usually hear that like I'm playing faster than the audience is singing because people really like to sing along at the end. So I'm thinking more about like, okay, I should try and slow it down. And like this last show in Paris, I played one of their absolute heroes, Jean-Jacques Goldman, and they sing everything start to finish. Like people are just so pumped, right? And I'm like, I have a choir that I'm accompanying tonight. So like I'm gonna like wait and like let them kind of catch up a bit because I think I'm just understanding my function is to give people this experience.
Hmm. Amazing. And in terms of getting gigs, I mean, you got this gig through a connection, right? Someone that you knew. Do you have advice
Yeah.
for people in terms of how would they get gigs? How to build connections? How do you get gigs?
Yes.
Hmm.
So this is super crucial because I'm not the only artist to get booked for Candlelight, but I've gotten booked a lot for Candlelight. So I think artists are not taking advantage of the importance of building relationships. Like you have got to put in the work. You've got to send it the thank you messages the day after. You've got to take the pictures and post them and tag every single person on your socials and talk about the experience and how grateful you are. You got to go out and meet the public after and shake hands and say, hey, like, so good to meet you. Looking forward to seeing you at the next one. Like, I made myself a team member and I didn't show up and say, I'm the artist, like treat me with the respect I deserve. And then I go home and let the staff pick up behind me, right? Like I'm saying hi to the staff as much as I can. I'm talking to the coordinators. I'm checking in with coordinators if I haven't heard from a certain, I work with multiple regions. I work with the Netherlands, west of France, north France, east France, Belgium. So if I haven't heard from someone in a while, which doesn't happen anymore, but in the early days, I'm like texting them, hey, how's it going? Just thinking of you, just, wondering how things are going, what programs are coming up, and letting you know. I was texting the Canadian guy, like, hey, I've got these 14 programs ready. Just let me know, sending the emails. It's the work. It's what we teach at the Fearless Artist. Telling the musician, like, marketing yourself means sharing and building connections with people because, as you know, our careers are built on networking and relationships. So if you're not willing to put in the work and meet people and talk about something other than yourself, people aren't going to like you and want to book you again.
Amazing. Do you have kind of rules for yourself in that regard? Meaning, like, do you kind of keep track of it? I haven't reached out to this person in a while. I need to reach out to them. Or do you just kind of keep like a mental Rolodex and just think of it when you think of it? Or do you actually like track it? You know?
I mean, in the beginning, I had a list on my phone of like strategic people that I might want to connect with. This is like different than Candlelight. This was some people on the local government who had ties with the classical music world that I wanted to make sure I was, the theater director, like oh, I should have a coffee with him, or someone who was good at fundraising for, those kind of strategic networking connections. An old professor from McGill, just checking in with them. But mostly it's in my head. I've trained myself to think like this. I played live on the radio yesterday. I send the thank you WhatsApp message today. I'm sure 90% of artists don't do stuff like that. Like it is
Hmm.
so important. And then what happens? Like the guy writes me back instantly, follows me on Instagram. Boom, instant connection made. Now I make sure I'm going to stay in touch with him regularly. Intentionally building relationships is crucial for every musician.
And you just got to put in the work, like punch the clock. You got to do it every day, right?
Yeah, and it's not even that much work. I mean, how fun is it to talk to you, right? Like how did we connect? Right?
Exactly.
I find your account. I was totally blown away by your content. Like, who's this guy? Luckily, you're not anonymous anymore, Mr. Wise Musician. And then we started chatting, and now we get to hang out. So it's not actually work. And I wish musicians would realize, like, our job is to talk to people. It's to invite people into our world. Like, you want people to become classical music fans? Okay, tell them why they should care.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of people leave that and they just think that that should be left to somebody else. But they want to do the art, but not the other side. But I guess it's in a way it's an extension of music. I mean, with music, you're connecting with people, so you just have to think about connecting with people, but in a different way, right? So it's kind of
And when we see how many music programs are getting shut down because of lack of funding, like, who do you expect to train the next generation to love classical music? Because there are no music classes at school a lot of the times, right? So who do you want to educate? I think every musician also has the role of being an educator. Invite people in, tell them why you care about Brahms and Beethoven, show them what is beautiful, teach them how to listen. It's, that's how you create new audiences and connection with them.
incredible. And I was just wondering, before you go out to do a candlelight gig, do you have a mental routine, kind of like a mental prep routine that you do, or do you just kind of just go out and do it? Or is there like a visualization that you do, or um, a hype thing that you do for yourself?
Yes, actually I do. There's like 14 different programs that I play, so a lot of the energy is different. So like for the Queen program, usually what I do is I put the playlist on Spotify and I get their sound in my head because my job at the piano is to recreate, it's to bring tribute to the band, and I take that pretty seriously because I'm like, I watched Bohemian Rhapsody and I sobbed my eyes out because these people, they sacrifice their entire lives to give to audiences, thousands and thousands of people. They've touched generations of people, like, and playing their music is a way to say this is how important and what they've given to us as artists. So it's important that I try to capture their sound at the piano. Well, that's not really possible. I don't have an electric guitar, but like at least I've got in my head what it should be, and then I can kind of recreate that. Also, I've got people in the audience crying their eyes out because they've loved Queen their entire lives and they're wearing the t-shirts, and like, you know, in that sense, it's like, let's get it in the head. So, I have some Freddie Mercury power moves that I do. I watched his live show when they did, what is it, right? World Aid. What was that? The live show that they
Yeah,
did?
Live Aid. Yeah.
Right, Live Aid. I rewatched that. I imagine their energy, their stage presence. I've worked so much on my stage presence. Oh my gosh, I've like read books and watched Taylor Swift, and I've like put it in my brain, like how to walk on stage and capture an audience. Cause like we're here to give energy. So you got to be on. And so that means like 5 minutes before, everybody out of my room, like don't talk to me. I'm not on my phone. Um, I got to get in the mode, the stage performance. It's kind of like a lever. You just like flip the lever, you're like, all right, I'm on now. And sometimes you got to flip it fast because I've been late a few times. I arrived at a venue once. I had 6 minutes to like change hair, makeup, walk out, and you're like, all right, everybody, here we go. But I think it's like an internal shift, and you're like, it's time to shift up a gear here.
So those 5 minutes when everybody's out of the room, what's happening before you walk on stage?
Thinking about what I want to do.
Hmm.
My trying to make some really specific goals. Think about any songs. Think about the set list order, the flow, the energy, the culture that I'm in. If I'm in France or if I'm in Amsterdam, it's a very different crowd. I listen for the person introducing me. Is she like warming up the crowd, or is she just staying really quiet? Like, I think I shared this with you in a private conversation, but like I do 2 shows back to back. So by the end of the first show, everyone's open and laughing, and it's been a great emotional experience. And then the second show starts, and everybody's back to square one, where it's like a very serious classical audience. And I'm like, hello, everyone, and welcome. You're allowed to like, relax here and enjoy. And so I think that's what I'm thinking about. Thinking about the last time I played the show, if there's anything I want to fix, any immediate stuff that I can go smoother. I'm always trying to think about how to get better, 1% better.
Hmm. And like you said
Yes.
before, depending on the repertoire, you're like in a different headspace. So you're almost
Yeah.
like playing almost like a different character for each program, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Goldman show, he's like a French singer-songwriter. So I know, like, depending on the city, people might be singing. I'm preparing myself for that. I have to say, like, this week was the Paris premiere, and I was a little bit in my head about that one. I was like, okay, I've got 800 people here. It's sold out. It's Adele. They are like Adele fans, It's like I really want the audience to like me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like okay, yeah, you want to be a people pleaser, but you don't want to be a people pleaser at the same time. So I'm always wrestling with that tension. Um, I think a lot about like sending energy, like to the very back. third balcony can they see and feel me? I want to grab them and give what they have. And I learned that from Joyce DiDonato. She's like, those people up there, they paid $150 to be here tonight. So you better just make sure you connect with them and reach them. Right. And I'm like, all right, like send everything I have and give. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of the mindset I'm walking out. And I've watched when you say feedback, I mean, because they can film, I've seen myself on stage so many times with like the insecure rounded shoulders, not knowing when to smile or bow and stuff. So I've worked so much. That's coming back to the stage presence. Like, how do you walk out with confidence and be like, hey, I'm here for everybody to relax and have a good time? And that's our job as artists, right? Like, people have stressful jobs. They don't want to come and see an artist who's also stressed out because she's worried about missing her cadenza in the Chopin Nocturne, right? They want to come in and have a good time and see a professional on stage who's creating this experience for them to enjoy. So also just keeping that in my head, like, I'm here to do something important.
And watching film of yourself, is that a routine? Is that still part of your routine, or is that something that you did earlier and you kind of figured it out and now you don't do it as much?
No, I still do it now because sometimes I can't believe what I'm seeing. I'm like, who's that? Because I had this dress this week that was made for me by this French designer, and it had this kind of like airbag thing, and I'm just like, how did I play with that? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just watching. I can't believe what I see. It's because also when you're on stage, you don't realize how far some people can be away from you. We've got three balconies of people. So somebody had taken a video from the third balcony, and I'm like this little spot on the stage. I'm like, wait, how did I do that? And that's why I think it really is this shift of energy, because you put yourself in this modus and you're like, I'm on now and I'm not thinking about so many things. So just zero in on what the job is at hand. And in that sense, I think I can play for 40 people or 400 people in the same way. It would be like the same show because I'm not looking at the audience and counting heads. I'm just giving what I have to give.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard performers like Joshua Bell, for example. His argument is, or his the way he looks at it is like, I'm playing music, I'm in my own world, and I draw people into me. But the way you look at it is a little
Okay.
bit different, right? It's more like you're like sending it out almost. It's
Yeah.
sending out the
I
energy.
mean, that's
Mhm.
cool how he describes it. And I can totally understand how you want to like, yeah, invite people into that shared experience with you. But
Hmm.
I think I'm probably approaching it differently.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And what are you actually thinking about while you're playing? Are you thinking expression, emotion? Are you just thinking, what's going through your head?
Depending how strong my critic is that day, telling myself, focus, lock in, listening. I'm listening a lot. Like, am I getting the sound that I want to get? Um, Hopefully the technical passages are all sitting well and then there's nothing super hard. When I start Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm a little bit freaked out about that because there's a couple hard spots in there and it's like always, oh, here we go. But mostly I'm just trying to listen to the sound I want to create and tell my inner critic to stop yapping at me. I'm still working on that self one, self two thing from the inner game of tennis.
So sometimes you catch yourself thinking about technique and you have to get out of that mindset in a sense. It's like,
Not even technique, but just like, yeah, the technical aspect of the performance, I mean, not like
mm,
not like loosen your wrists or whatever, but just, like, okay, is this good? Do they like me? Oh no, how's it going? Oh, I feel hot. I didn't eat enough. Oh, I'm low, a little bit low energy. Oh, I just said that in French. I think I messed up all my words. And I was like, stop, just focus on these notes, please. Like, it's like you're stabbing yourself as you're trying to run a race. It's this critic of ours, it sucks so much. You're like seriously self-sabotaging in front of 500 people. And then they come off and they're like, so how was it for you? And you're like, I don't even know how to explain what's going on in my head. But I think I've gotten better at just like relaxing. And again, it's like that perspective shift. Like, okay, people aren't here to judge me. They're here to enjoy. And so actually my job, I got to stop being so selfish. It's not about me at all.
yeah, it's about the music. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I catch myself thinking that way too. When you make it about you, that's when the mistakes happen. It's
Yep.
interesting, but
Or if I start overthinking, that's when I'll screw up because I'll take away the automatic gesture that I've programmed in, because I'm like starting to overthink something. It's like, stop, just relax and get in the flow. You know what you're doing. Just relax. So
Mhm,
sometimes depends on the night, but it's getting better and better because I've had so much experience. And that's why I'm so grateful for Candlelight because I'm on stage constantly. So I can always learn to improve these things. And I think I'm pretty much bulletproof on stage now. Definitely better than I used to be.
mhm. So and how frequent are these concerts? I mean, is it every week or pretty
Yeah,
much?
I'm doing 8 to 10 a month or something.
Mhm.
So
Wow,
yeah. For
incredible.
example, speaking of being bulletproof, the reason I bring that up is because like yesterday I played this. big festival here, and it was a classical program. I did Corn Gold and Jodot from Ravel and some Liszt and stuff. And there was on the huge square, the market square outside, there was a line dancing group, and this woman had a microphone that she was screaming into, and there was a subwoofer like doo, 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 and it was coming through the wall into the hall where I was playing. And I was like trying to play French music with this massive subwoofer accompaniment, you know. And I was like, I stopped between the movements of the Corn Gold, and I looked at the audience like, what do you guys want me to do? Because this is crazy. And like, it was seriously affecting my hearing and stuff. And they were like, just keep going. And then the organizer, you know, he thanked me profusely. And he's like, I'm so sorry. We tried to stop them, but couldn't. And then I realized like, he's like, it was amazing how you kept going. And I'm like, yeah, but I think I'm like bulletproof from all this Candlelight stuff. Cause I've had to play through some crazy stuff. Like you just got to keep going. You just got to do the show, you know? And yeah, I think a lot of artists would also benefit from having this kind of situation. You got to be so adaptable and flexible.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Because life isn't perfect. We don't have these perfect conditions, you know, and in sometimes you just got to be ready to go.
was that the concert you shared that on your Instagram page where you weren't expecting to go on but you had to go on right away, or was that a different concert?
No,
That was the
that
one.
was yesterday morning on
Yeah.
the live radio. Yeah, two things in one day. Yesterday was a whole whirlwind. So I show up for the radio and I don't know, I had the wrong information. They told me you're going to do an interview in Dutch. So I was already freaked out about that. So you play the first piece, do the interview, and then play the second piece. And you play at 10 after 10. You get to sound check at 9:30 for 3 minutes while we play a CD in front of a live audience, by the way. So I arrive, the whole audience sees me. They're sitting there eating their breakfast. They're playing a CD. They're like, okay, try the piano 3 minutes. It's an upright. There was like film or something on the keys. So I'm like, can I get a rag? So I'm like wiping off the keys. This is so bad, right? In front of the audience. Then I try it for 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm good to go. And then I was like, oh, I have half an hour. I'm going to grab a coffee and chill. He's like, oh, actually, I'm so sorry, but you go on right now. And I'm like, no, you said in 30 minutes. What are you talking about? He's like, no, it's now. And I was like, okay. I didn't even change my shoes. Had a camera in my face, like right here, and the radio and the audience, and I got to play like right now. And I said it on my stories, but I had a teacher in university. She said, you got to be ready to play at midnight on an iceberg. Like any moment, you got to be ready. And I think yesterday was one of those moments. Just like, dear God, like I hope that anyone listening to this has mercy, you know, of like I haven't even listened back. I can't listen back yet. I hope it's okay.
So how do you do that? How do you just flip the switch and get into that mindset right away? I mean, you're just so used to it by now, or how does that
I
how
certainly tried. I mean, I think I did. I did get into flow because I just went on like automatic. And I think I can just like block out. I wasn't trying to focusing on audience at all. I was just like, just play, you know, get into your colors, find the phrase, settle down, you know. I think it's for me, I've always been someone who's been kind of insecure, so I rush. So it's really about like breathing, finding the rhythm, getting into it, taking space between phrases. That's what I'm thinking about. Just like, okay, you gotta like, oh, Leon Fleischer, he said, play as late as possible without actually being late. Thinking about that a lot, especially in a adrenaline heavy situation. Also, just learning to stay super calm when there's stress. I used to be someone who would like really freak out emotionally if there was a issue. And now it's just like the more stressful the situation is, the more calm I'm getting. Cause it's like, okay, now I really need to hone in and like make this thing happen. So that's been a kind of a personal growth thing I've had to learn.
That's fascinating. And that's fascinating too, what you said about Leon Fleischer. So when you're playing live and it's stressful, play behind the beat, think behind the beat. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, I'm never behind the beat because I'm always a little bit I'm so driven, I'm on top of the beat, right? So by me trying to be late, I'm actually like probably closer to being in the pocket. So yeah, I probably need to like hang out with a drummer a lot more and just like learn where the groove is.
So would you say it's a concentration thing? I mean, you're just better at concentrating now because you played so much live. It's like you can just snap into that mode that you need to be in and concentrate and stay in there. Because a lot of people, they'll get in, but then they'll get out. They'll let emotion or distraction take them out of the moment. So is it a kind of a concentration thing for you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think as you're saying, if there is something that pulls you out, you're back in like as soon as you can. Like, you know, somebody coughs or there's a phone ringing or somebody's talking, and, you know, you hear it and it's irritating and you kind of want to yell at them, but you're like, wait, come back. I've got a job to do. Like, right, you know, lock in. And something that's also really helped me is at the gym when I'm doing a set of reps, I am like super locked in until those 15 reps are done. And that has helped me so much on stage. Because in the past, I'd be like somebody walking by and I'm like looking around and I'm doing my pull things or whatever. And now it's like for 15 reps, no one is touching me. I'm like locked into this thing. And I think that's been super helpful. I just like training my focus because I've been a pretty distracted person, like too much on my phone or like messages coming in and you're always jumping around and it's exciting. And then it's like, wait, like that's affecting the quality here.
Yeah, that's fascinating about the gym. That's fascinating too, because I noticed that, yeah, staying in that mindset, thinking about the muscle and not letting that go for those 10 reps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if somebody comes over to say hi to you, they can stand there and wait until you're done your set. Like and in the past I would never do that. I'd like start chatting or whatever. It's like, no, like I'm doing something and this is important. And I think that's also how, we need to understand the value of what we're doing because then you put the seriousness behind the work.
Hmm. So I want to ask you as well, because you're such an amazing person on social media. You really got it down. It's incredible what you do. What do
It's
you,
coming from the guy who has a 250,000 followers and my little
oh,
following. Thank you. It's so
No, I
nice.
mean you're really on it, and your energy. I want to ask you about this later because your energy. Well, let me just ask you about it now. I mean, I was just curious because when I see you on camera on your social media, you always have a smile on your face. It's like your energy just like pops through the screen.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Like, how are you always on when you're recording these?
Uh, that's funny. Okay, so it's intentional. I don't go on my stories if I'm not on. It's a boundaries issue too. Like if I'm having a rough moment, like I had to process this whole radio thing. Like I phoned a close friend and like vented before I go onto my Instagram story. So there's like a definitely a level of protection. And I think the most important thing is I'm always thinking of my audience. Like what did they need from me? So I'm not going to go on there and vent because that's not for them. That's not for those people. That's for my inner circle, the people who know me and understand me and can give me wisdom and feedback to help me process the situation and move on. And by the time I go to my audience, it's because I want to give them like what I've learned or the lesson or like or just sharing the funniness of the moment. Cause I think after I process what's happened, I can just laugh about it. Cause I'm like, that was crazy. And I need to tell my friends right now. So it's just like getting on there and telling everybody. And I think in general, I'm a pretty positive person. That's kept me going. So, um, yeah, just letting my natural self come through on camera has been really fun because people appreciate that. And a lot of people have trouble with that. So I think the advice is like, just pretend it's your best friend behind the screen and that they really care about what you're saying. And like my content has improved drastically as like, again, you watch it back and you see how you can improve it. And, natural lighting always does wonders and like those kind of things.
So where does that positivity come from? Have you always been that way?
I think so. I've always just been like a happy kid, excited about life, too loud. uh yeah, I've learned to relax, that like laughter, humor, having a sense of humor, things can really keep you going. My dad is a storyteller, so just listening to him talk has always been such a source of joy and hanging out with family and um I'm coming from like a conservative farmer background. You work really hard and you pull up your bootstraps and you give what you've got to give and you go to bed tired because you worked hard that day. And it's a satisfied thing and it's a pride thing. And you're like just glad that you did good work that day. And I'm super supported. I've got great friends, great family. Like I have so much to be thankful for.
Hmm. Yeah, and you have an amazing career. So, um,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. And did you grow up speaking French, by the way? I was just curious.
I learned French immersion in kindergarten. But my French was like Emily in Paris French, like bonjour tout le monde aujourd'hui, so that kind of French. And then I moved to Montreal at age 20 and my university was in French and I had to do all my courses and my piano lessons in French, which was insane. And I was so intimidated and like pulled around because he was also using solfege, which is like do re mi. And of course I learned CDE. So funny story, but like the ground in French is called sol sol. And then also your thumb is called uh the note G is sol. But in do re mi we learned it as so. So that was also something new that I was learning. So my whole brain was like exploding and I couldn't keep up. And he said, "Put your thumb on the ground." I thought is what he said, but he actually said, "Put your thumb on G, the key." Like a normal piano lesson. So I looked at him like I was gonna put my thumb on the ground, and he looked at me like, "How stupid is this girl who just showed up from Alberta?" And I was like, "I don't understand." So those were the adjustment years. And then working in France, I've started, in the beginning, I wasn't even presenting in French because I was too nervous. And then now it's just like kind of become a little bit more natural.
Yeah. So you do these concerts in French, you do them in English. Do you do them in Dutch too, or?
I do. I just started getting more brave and people are very forgiving. They hear my accent and they're like, oh, that poor girl, at least she's trying. And then I know my sentence structure is a mess sometimes. But mostly the feedback I get is like, you're talking too fast and your Dutch is actually fine because you're nervous. You got to go. You got to slow down. So,
I
yeah.
know. Who learns Dutch? Wow, that's just crazy.
I mean, I've been here 11 years. I don't have it's not that impressive, to be honest. I
True.
probably could have been fluent by now. Okay, so yesterday I did this radio interview and it was live and asked me a question and I answered it. And then he asked me a second question and I had no idea what he said because it sounded so similar to the first question. I was like, did I not just answer this? So I kind of just mumbled something. I don't know what I said. And then he like took the mic back. He's like, can you just play? I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to play. So I hope it was okay. Never know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to ask you, what do musicians need to know about social media, in your opinion? Like, how should they think about
Start
social media?
start finding your audience because there's people out there who care about you. Oh my gosh, stop thinking about the worst critic in your mind that's preventing you from posting, like that one person that makes you feel bad about yourself. And start thinking about all the people who love what you do and then find a way to share that with them. Simple, simple. Keep it way too, people overthink everything and then I started this killing perfectionism in classical challenge on Instagram a few years ago. Use the hashtag take 5 takes of a piece that you're working on, post the 30-second clip that you don't hate the most, and then do it again for 10 days. And people are like, I took 72 takes and I couldn't post any of them because it was so bad. It's like, guys, we got to get over this. Like, do you want to have a performing career? Do you want people to come to your concerts? You got to learn how to share. You got to learn how to talk about what you're doing. And when you find people who like you, then it's way easier because you focus on them and you forget the rest.
Yeah, so don't think about the numbers, don't think about how big your audience is necessarily, but it's more about the quality of your audience, right?
Yeah, engagement is huge. Like every single comment, you treat that as if it's a person coming up to you after a concert in real life and saying, thank you so much for your playing. That touched me. I mean, how would you respond when somebody says that to you in real life? Well, that's the equivalent of them taking the time to leave a comment on your page. So you go and you thank them and you say, I really appreciate you being here. And by the way, here's my YouTube channel with more, my Spotify. Hopefully you have an album out or whatever. Here's my mailing list, about my next concerts coming up, and start to build relationships with people. And this is what we teach, like how to build a fan base. And for classical musicians, this is like a foreign concept that they would actually have fans, because like that's ridiculous. Like, the audience just comes because the theater books the tickets or whatever. It's like, well, welcome to the real world where the theater wants you to promote your own concerts and bring an audience with you. And the higher chance that you do that, by the way, is higher chance of you getting hired. So it's in your best interest to learn how to do this.
Hmm. Do you think it directly led to the Candlelight gig, having a social media presence or being great on social media? Did that help you get that gig?
I don't think so, but I think it helped me sustain the gig.
Yeah.
Because I got in again because they needed a pianist last minute, but I kept it because I've just been so much doing the work behind the scenes.
Hmm. And what kind of rhythm should musicians have on social media? Should it be every day, a few times a week? Like how do
Oh,
you
come on, Nick, you're the expert on this. You're the one who should be telling this. I'm not taking this one.
well,
Um,
it worked out, but yeah.
what we say is like be consistent. So if it's like once a week, well, I'm just stealing this now from my interview with you. Be consistent, post the same time every week. Let your audience know what they can expect from you. You have a concert, talk about it, share a picture after, make it simple. People need to overthinking everything and then comparing themselves to someone who's been doing it forever. That's the worst part.
Hmm. Yeah, in terms of comparison too, because social media can be toxic with Facebook and everything. Like you see other people's projects that they're doing, you see their lives, you see the success.
I'm very
Lost you for a
sorry.
second. No worries.
Oh, my computer's dying on me. There we go. Okay, sorry about
Okay.
that.
I'll repeat that one. Um, yeah, social media can be toxic, right? When you see people's successes, we see these lives that people are living, they're traveling, they're playing amazing concerts, and it can be a toxic thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
how do you deal, like, do you ever experience envy or jealousy, or have you ever
yeah.
experienced that in the past? And like, how do you deal with that online?
Okay, so 2017, Michelle sat on the couch and scrolled past all the girls playing big concerts in pretty dresses and thought, wow, I could never do that. And I really wish I could go back to her and say, like, you have no idea what's waiting for you on the other side of fear, putting yourself out there, doing the work, trying, seeing if it's actually true that you can't. I decided a long time ago that my brand is always going to be authentic because I did fall into that comparison for so many years and I got stuck there. So I really try to let people into like the ups and downs, but always with like a positive outcome because I do not use socials for complaining. But in terms of comparison, I think there's a few things you can do to protect yourself. Like ask yourself what kind of mental state you're in when you're scrolling. Like, are you tired? Are you a little bit down? Did you have a rough day? Now is not the time to go and see everybody else's accomplishments. Are you aware that people use Instagram as a highlight reel? Do you know that they've filtered and chopped everything up to perfection? Do you know that they don't post their mistakes, but they did make mistakes? Like, are you keeping that perspective in your mind, or are you getting sucked into believing that what you see is truth? Because that's dangerous. And boundaries, how long are you spending on there every day? And is it helpful? Are you consuming more than you're creating? That's a problem. Are you sharing with people and having authentic relationships? I love Instagram. Do you know how many people I've met because of Instagram? I'm never going to bash on the app. It's about how you're using it. Is it benefiting your career or not? So I still have to catch myself, don't scroll myself to sleep. I don't touch it in the morning. I'm not answering messages throughout the day. I've got set times that I'll like sit down and try and get a few. And I have an assistant who handles most of my DMs. I don't read a lot of them.
Hmm. Yeah. So how do you handle that consume to create ratio? How do you think about that?
I I'm a pretty instinctive person, so I can feel myself like, oh, I feel the feeling of like, oh no. And if I get judgmental, if I feel judgment come into my heart, then I know I need to get off. Okay, now it's not helpful anymore. I don't need to look at this right now. Is it inspiring me? Then okay, let's think about how I can use this. If it's not inspiring and I'm judging that person, then that's a problem and I need to get off and probably go outside or have a nap.
Yeah, judgment's a big one, right? That's a
Yeah.
big, yeah.
Yeah, because
That's
it literally doesn't help. It doesn't help her or me or the person that I'm judging. And, if I'm jealous because they're playing, the other thing with Candlelight is like as a classical musician, you worry so much that like people have said, oh, I would never do Candlelight. It's such a sellout. It's like, well, you can think like that and you can argue that. And I can kind of see that. But at the same time, it's given me some of the most joyful onstage experiences of my entire life. So what do you want to accomplish with your career as a musician, and it's not that that's the only type of music I play either, so I try to show that as a balanced brand on my page too, but at the end of the day you can't control what people think of you, and you have to ask yourself what gives you the most fulfillment in your career, and this for me has been so that kind of stuff, not letting the little termites get to you, the mental termites.
Have you ever dealt with the age thing too? Meaning like you see people doing things at an earlier age than you've done accomplished them.
Oh,
Like
it's so brutal. So brutal. I mean, okay, this is funny. Every month I get my Google stats and it says what people are searching for when they look for me. Always top five. It's like Michelle Lynne age. Michelle Lynne, and also in Dutch, Leeftijd. How old is this girl? I'm 36. I'm just going to say it. Everybody can know I'm 36. I didn't make it in my 20s. I was teaching piano full time, hiding in my living room. I didn't have a performing career. I was trying to build one. Took a long time. Didn't have any songs out. It's like, but at the same time, if you tell yourself it's over and you're too old, then like there's literally no point to the rest of your life. I
yes.
don't understand why people don't realize this. It's like, okay, if you've decided today that you're too old, then there's literally no point ever again because you're always getting older. So, like, what are you going to do? Are you just going to give in to that? Or are you going to say, let's see what's possible for me at this age? Let's see. Nobody has told me, like, oh, you can't play the piano anymore because you're too old. Sometimes people are surprised and maybe disappointed that I'm not like this young prodigy anymore. They're like, wow, how old are you? Like, I'm 36. I know what I'm doing. Like, I've been doing this for a while. And sorry if they're disappointed, but for me, it's like, yeah, it took this long to get here, and I'm not going to say no now that it's here.
Yeah, and that's a trap too, a mental trap, right? This thinking about prodigies, meaning like this person's a prodigy, they have talent, I don't, and I can't get there because I don't have that talent,
Do you know
whatever.
what that is? Like, it's
Yeah.
the number one thing that's helped me, the fixed mindset. Carol Dweck, her work, like God bless Carol Dweck, because that's a fixed mindset thing. Somebody else has talent, therefore I don't. I'm sorry, those two things are not related, and musicians have been taught that they are, right? So I just played these pieces by Korngold yesterday. He wrote them when he was 12. I worked my ass off for weeks, months, and I still can't play it perfectly. And this kid wrote it when he was 12. I mean, that's just depressing, right? But I've had a great enjoyment learning them, and I played for a bunch of people yesterday who were really happy. So what's the point here? Like, again, coming back to like, why are we doing this?
Hmm.
And what does it matter if I was 11 and I could play them better than I did today? Like, what does that actually change ultimately? Like, people get wrapped up in the stupidest things because we're always trying to compete and be this like important person. It's like, what about if importance is just giving and using our gift and serving people with our gift, doing what we're called to do? What if that's what's important?
Yeah, and art is not a competition, right? It's not a, yeah.
But I mean, when you're telling 4-year-olds, go up there and play against your cousin Johnny, and we're going to count your mistakes and give you a gold sticker or a silver if you didn't get the right, I mean, we're teaching ourselves from the young age it's about competition. So of course we're like this.
That's true. That's true. Especially in classical music, it's a you have auditions, it's very competitive. So yeah, that's a thing too, but it's a tough
Or
line to
yeah,
balance, right? Yeah.
yeah, people put so much importance on like if you've won a competition or not, or management is looking for the people who've won the big competitions. But then you hear stories of people who get the management and it doesn't actually work out for them, or they don't like it, or we attach importance to things that maybe don't have the significance that we think that they do. And then you base your whole life around that, and that's kind of a shame.
Amazing. And I wanted to ask you, I had the pleasure of hearing one of your songs yesterday. One of
Aw,
one of your produced songs. It was incredible.
aw, thanks.
And first of all, your voice is just it's so expressive. I mean, you can really feel the emotion coming through your voice. It was amazing.
Thank you. That's so
And
nice.
yeah, and I was just wondering, what is the songwriting process like? How did you write that song or those
Ooh,
songs? Yeah.
which one did you listen to? Because I
Listen
can
to
tell you.
Help Me Heal.
Yeah, yeah, let me heal. Yeah, that was a rough one. Whew. I went through some trauma. So I think writing for me was like journaling my emotions, getting everything out that I was holding in, was really important to me. And then in the songwriting process, I actually took a course during COVID, and it was extremely helpful because as a perfectionist, I had no idea where to start, and I had little pieces of like melody and lyric kind of like floating around, but I would never put them together because I was desperately worried about not being good enough or having something that was bad or people would judge me or whatever. All the limiting beliefs, I had them. So two things happened. I took this songwriting course and he really just taught us how to write, you know, verse, bridge, chorus, think about the overall structure of the song. Like there was exercises we did, exchanges with other people in the class. Like that was super helpful. And then I had a producer who was just like, just show me what you have. And I'm like, no, no, you can't listen. And he's like, just show me. And he's like, okay, this is cool. We can work with this. And then he took it into the studio. And then I learned about producing, and I had zero idea about how any of that world worked because I've just been a classical pianist my whole life. And then he took my little drafts and he made them really cool. And I was like, oh, this is actually so fun. And then I hired a cellist from Instagram, that cello guy. And then I hired a drummer from LA. And then it got to be really fun where you're like putting together this project. And then, you record your vocals and you put the reverb on. You're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, this is a creative thing that I didn't have to, like, put so much criticism on. And yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. So the lyrics came from journaling. So you just writing your thoughts out. You're taking little bits from the kind of from that.
Yeah, or things that I've read. My first song, Hold On, there's a verse in the Bible where he says, pick up the broken pieces, let nothing be wasted. And that blew up in my face when I read that because it was the middle of the COVID and I felt like my life was in pieces and I had no idea how I was going to go forward. And I was like, oh, there's something on this. So sometimes when I read, things will jump out at me and I just kind of see if I can play around. But you're right, it's very emotional writing. It's very much like storytelling, my story. But I also didn't want to give so much away because I don't want it to be like my journal for the world to read. So you try to like use metaphors and you try to bring in like storytelling language or, nature. I've read a few books. Writing Good Lyrics is a really great book that my vocal coach recommended, and just like playing with different words and seeing, how you can make people think. And that's also art, right? Like, how can you give someone an experience when they're listening that they have to think about what you're saying and how it relates to them? And that's where things can get really beautiful.
And where do melodies come from?
Mm, well, I just took voice lessons my whole life, so I think I've been singing for so long that I know it's pretty instinctive. I think I sit down and I find the chords, and then I kind of play around until something hits in my spirit, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. I do not like analyze or craft or anything. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that sounds repetitive. Okay, I'll just go up and set it down here. It's just like, that kind of, yeah, natural, I think. My songwriting, when I did the course, he's like, oh, you write very classically. I'm like, oh, that's because I'm a pianist.
Mhm. And did you record the vocals in a studio or was it at
Yeah.
home? Yeah.
Yeah, with August, the producer, he had a studio in Maastricht where I live, and he was awesome to work with. And he's also the one who was telling me like you need to sing behind the beat because you're like always a little bit, it's my personality, and our personalities are always going to come through in our art, so just got to learn to chill out.
So what was it like recording that in a studio? I mean, is there a different mindset from being on stage versus being in a studio in terms of like the mindset you have to get in to produce something?
Yeah. Man, that was 2 years ago now, so it's got to think about that. I mean, I think in my head I split that person completely from the Michelle on stage to like the Michelle the singer, because I think also with the classical training it's like so locked into like what it means to be a classical pianist that this to me felt like a completely different world. It was not related at all. Um so I just could kind of be more free, I think. And then we were just, recording process, take after take after take, and then you listen back and you're like, okay, let's try again. And then there's also freedom and just letting go and being like, okay, this is what I have, and let's see what we can do with it. Yeah, it was cool. I had a great producer. You need to have someone that you can work with that you trust, and who you're safe with. And he was so encouraging because I was so desperately insecure. And so he really helped me. Yeah.
Do they help you kind of conjure up that emotion that you need to get it out? You know, I mean, how do you conjure that up in a studio?
No, I think that just came from me kind of going there. Like
Hmm.
I put myself there. So just thinking about the words with the feeling. I worked with a vocal coach extensively. He helped me a lot, like prepare, putting myself in the mindset of, yeah, it's your feeling. It's just coming out. It's why you wrote it. And in that sense, it's also very natural. You don't need to put on any airs. I've always not really liked affected singing or anything. So it is very natural. I've always, yeah, just thought, okay, this is how I am. And it was also so new. There was kind of no pressure on it because nobody was like criticizing it and telling me it was bad. So that's really nice. You're just like, this is kind of a free zone, creativity free zone.
Hmm. Well, it really worked. I mean, you know, you could really feel. I was just shocked. I was just like, wow, this is just like really powerful. So amazing.
Thanks. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's so nice to hear, especially because I held myself back for so long because I didn't want to be judged by my classical colleagues. Like, oh, she's such a sellout singing pop songs, right? Like, this is what I mean. Musicians, like, we get these constructs in our mind of what's acceptable to our colleagues because we just want to be accepted by everybody, I guess, or maybe that's a me problem. And now in the last years, it's been like, oh, wait, there's a lot of people out there who don't think like this and they really love it and it means something to them. And maybe I should focus on them instead because it's a lot more fun.
Hmm. Yeah. Amazing. I'd want to ask you a couple more things. I was just wondering, how has your faith informed your artistry? You know, has it always been kind of a part of it, or is it more recent? Or
Oh man. My faith has carried me through all the hard seasons of my life, the good seasons. I think it's what I kind of build my worldview around is why, I've learned to how to love people better, how to stay humble through all of this, how to not, to get rid of selfishness, like, yeah, praying that God changes me, gives me the influence that he's asked me to have and to use my gift that I've been given, taking that more seriously. Um, Being so grateful for everything I've been given, and then I went through like an extreme loss and that was very confronting and really, really hard. And I really just turned to my faith as strength and source of comfort because I literally didn't know what else to do. Like I was totally broken.
Mhm,
And that's where these songs came out of too. And music is healing. That's what I have in my Instagram bio because I really think like this is how we can express, first of all, what's going on inside and then just try to process in a way that's not like sometimes you just don't have words for what's going on.
mhm,
And yeah, and then of course, like, yeah, I found a lot of comfort in the Bible. Like God is my source and my strength, and He's with you in the hard times, and He will protect you, and He fights for you, and He's faithful to you. And this kind of language of like, okay, who's a God like this who loves me, and what does that mean? How does it change how I think about myself and the world and how I treat people? Yeah, I think
yeah.
it's informed most of my decisions.
Yeah, same. It's helped me a ton. I mean, you know, and I guess
That's
that's
awesome.
kind of what success is in a way, right? I mean, for you, you have this successful career. I think part of it probably is just realizing your vision and I mean realizing the vision that God has for you, and then you know actualizing that on earth in a way,
Yeah,
like
like what have you been called to do? What does he
yeah,
ask? What has he given you to do? Who are the people he's called you to serve? And like, and then coming out of this classical music mindset of like, what is success? Well, success is like playing Brahms too with the Berlin Phil. That's what I've been like, my whole life. It's like, okay, well, you didn't make it because you weren't good enough. And now I'm realizing like, well, maybe I just have a different set of skills and strengths and different people that I'm supposed to reach. And I'm just going to pursue that and see what opens up. And yeah.
exactly, yeah. And I think everybody needs to find what that is for themselves, right?
Yeah, and that's the beauty is that you don't actually have to compete and compare yourself to everyone else because you have such uniqueness in you. And if we believe that you have a unique purpose and a unique calling, then you don't have to worry about what everyone else is doing. Just find what you've been called to do and use that. And that's what's going to give you ultimate fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, yeah, can you talk about your platform, your coaching platform a little bit?
Yeah, the Fearless Artist exists
Mhm,
to give classical musicians everything that we should have learned in school. So, like, what to do besides practicing, how to get concerts, how to build an audience, how to talk to people on social media, how to stop overthinking everything and criticizing yourself in the process. We offer community, accountability, support, helping you define goals, make them, pursue what's important to you. People will usually come to us when they're feeling isolated, alone, nobody understands them. They need a place that they can talk to about like they don't realize all classical musicians kind of face the same problems because people don't share this stuff on Instagram. They only share the highlight reels. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of like education and community and support in terms of pursuing your goals. And then we have a mastermind, which is like you get to just hang out with awesome other musicians who are pursuing things at the high level. You learn so much from other people. And like iron sharpens iron. So that's the fastest way to grow is getting feedback, which is why I force myself to watch myself play so I can get
Mhm. So how do we find you?
better.
Fine.
This is Michelle Lynne is how you find me on Instagram.
Great.
And that's the
And
easiest way.
the Fearless Artist, do you have a separate page for that, or do you have a website for that?
Yes, sir. The Fearless Artist Mastermind.com.
Great. Amazing. Well, definitely find Michelle there. I mean, she's doing amazing work, not only through that platform, but through her career as well. And she's performing all over the place. Follow her on Instagram. It's just inspiring just to see what she's doing every single week. So amazing.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much.
So, yeah. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Been a big pleasure.